Hello and welcome along to this special programme which looks at the Winter Trophy races at Brands Hatch, held in a very cold November day, a bright day though it has to be said, and our race action today focusing on the cars of Burnett Motorsport, largely on those. We're all ready to go on race number 1 and we're looking back at the cars coming up towards the start line for the first of 3 races today. You can see 19 Lawrence Davey right of picture there. He's been going well this season. Alongside him he's 37, that's young Elliot Mason, the Scotsman, and we get off with a bang. Elliot Mason there going into Paddock Hill Bend, hitting Stevie Reynolds. Stevie on pole position at the moment, and well, is he going to hold on to that with the pressure from Elliot Mason in 37? We go on board with Ross Marshall. You can see how difficult it is here. The sun this time of year very low in the sky, and they come up towards Druids for the first time. Stephen Traherne, we're looking back from Stephen, he starts on P6 on the grid, and that's Steve Thompson in the silver and purple car behind him. Steve, a very forceful driver, as you can see, down to Graham Hill Bend, a little nudge there, lost a bit of ground after making a bit of contact. Now then, here comes Thompson again, a little bit of bump drafting along the straight. You can see Stevie Reynolds getting squeezed out there, left of picture, the red, white and blue car. Stevie losing a place, but it's Stephen Traherne out front at the moment of this group, at the very front of the field. I can tell you it's 22, Ben Mason, as Tony Kay goes into the gravel. Tony Kay in one of the Burnett cars, keeps his foot in, rejoins the circuit but loses places. You can see on board from Ross Marshall that Tony was running wide there, and poor old Tony Kay has got a little bit of work to do. Now here's the man who started on pole. This is Stevie Reynolds, lap 2, going up towards Paddock Hill Bend, goes wide there, and I think he's going to lose some ground. Little bit tail happy there, you can see him in the distance there, just going a bit tail happy and losing out, and this guy has gone through. The car we're on board with is Steve Traherne, and that's Steve Thompson in 41, the man from Essex chasing him in silver. Now Tony Kay on a recovery drive. The car there in front of him, 73, is the car of double champion Chris Grieve, this weekend being driven by his mechanic Mark Beattie, and Mark's acquitting himself very well as we go back with Steve Reynolds. Runs a little bit wide over the curbs at Graham Hill Bend. Through though goes 56 Mark Lord in the yellow car, and former jet ski champion Simon Belcher in the blue car with the white top. The white car going through is 85 Ian Holden, the ex-stock car driver. And now we're on board with Gary Fitzpatrick, and ahead of Gary in the silver and red car, which was right of screen, that's Pekka Latola, the Finnish driver. Back with Steve Traherne though, he's running in second position at the moment. Steve Thompson there in third. Tomo around about 5 or 6 lengths back as they cross the line. We go on board with Ross Marshall. This is first proper Legends car meeting. Did a little bit of Scottish Championship racing, and he'll have been up against that yellow car, 44. Andrew Donald, the sweetie man as he's known, from Knock Hill. And Andrew Donald racing from the gentleman's group, who started in front of the rookies. Ross is a rookie, so he's actually caught one of the drivers in the group ahead. Up towards Druids they go. On board with Gary Fitzpatrick, one of the Team Burnett cars. The livery's very, very distinguishable here. The Stars and Stripes livery that we normally associate with John Higgins. And Gary Fitzpatrick done a handful of meetings this year, getting better and better at Legends cars, and you can see he's right in the mix and having a great time with his racing as we go with this real low angle on Stevie Reynolds' car. Stevie, the volunteer lifeboatman, also a hotelier from Scotland, running well there. It's Ian Holden in front of him. You can see Stevie did lose places, but he hasn't lost ground on the cars in front, and that's very important. Stevie very much an occasional racer in Legends cars, and one feels that maybe would benefit from doing a full season, but he really enjoys his racing when he does come out and play with us. And he comes into Paddock Hill Bend here, closes up on Ian Holden, who's all over the curbs, is Holden. Somebody's kicked up on the dirt there, not quite sure who that was. Think it was possibly Pekka Latola, the Finnish driver. You could see it in the distance. We'll catch up and see what that car is as soon as we get into Druids. It was Pekka Latola, the ice racing champion from Finland, but he recovers very well indeed, and we're on board again with Tony Kay looking at the rear end of 2 top Scottish racers. Change of scene once again, now looking back at Andrew Donald in 44. from Tony Caig's car. So Tony making good progress after that run wide at Clark Curve on the first lap of the race. And here's Gary Fitzpatrick. Behind him we've got 24, Matthew Pape. He's run with Burnett Motorsport before. Matthew, the railway engineer from Leeds, had a partial season this year. Very, very well prepared car, that one. And here they come, fastest part of the track, 120 miles per hour as we go back on board now with Gary Fitzpatrick. That's Elliot Bunn, the rookie champion for 2007 in front of him. Bunn taking a wide line, vastly experienced driver Elliot Bunn. Oh, that's Pekka Latola going off there on the dirt. Well, Pekka manages to recover, and is Elliot Bunn going to get down the inside of the Finnish racer who's been very, very spectacular. Normally races on ice in his home country, and this is a reciprocal deal. That car belongs to Pete Morton, and Peter, the former national champion, actually used one of Pekka Latola's cars in Finland, and he's returned the compliment, loaning the car out to him this weekend at Brands. On board from Steve Reynolds. Nice view for Steve this. A little bit of clear track behind him, and that means that he hasn't got any pressure as he goes along Cooper Straight, up into Surtees Corner. Then it's into Clearways, which you'll be turning into now, and you can see, using the racing line, hugging the curve, as does Tony Caig in car number 5. This is the former Ollie Poyser championship winning car that Tony Caig's using this weekend. Caig, a former Scottish saloon car champion, having, I think, only his second outing in Legends cars, and Tony shaping up to pass Matthew Pape there in 24. We're getting a look back, and there is Matthew Pape there, left of shot on the inside. So a good clean manoeuvre by Tony Caig round the outside as we go back with Steve Reynolds in car 26, who is, let me see where Stevie is at the moment. He's a little bit of a way down the order, but enjoying his dice. There is Ian Holden in 85, the white car, and now we go back. Oh, we've got spinners there, couple of spinners. I think that's Gary Fitzpatrick and Darren Galton from the Burnett Motorsport camp. That's disappointing. That may well cause a little bit of a blockage up at Druid, so things perhaps will slow down. Now we're looking at the third place car of 19, Lawrence Davey, from the second place machine of 38, Steve Traherne. And these two both very, very good drivers indeed. Lawrence Davey, a good aggressive driver. Steve Traherne, very fast man as well. Tipped by many to have won a championship, but hasn't done so thus far. G-forces can really take effect. Davey having a look up the outside here at Druids, put on the brakes, locks up there. That's because those two cars on the inside. Now what you can't see here is the yellow flags. There will definitely be yellow flags at that corner. That means that the drivers won't be able to overtake. The yellow flags to slow everybody else down, to allow the stricken cars to be recovered, and more importantly for the drivers to get out to safety. Turning along Cooper Straight, you can hear the engine notes very much flat out along Cooper Straight as we go back with Tony Caig. Tony is ahead of that red machine. That's Gerard McCosh, the Scottish Championship front runner. He's been on the podium in the Scottish Championship a couple of times. Races off the back of the grid in National Championship races as one of the gentleman group, and enjoys just picking off the places as best he can from the back of the field. But there is Pekka Latola in 32. They're taking an outside line. Oh, we're going to see Pekka make a move there and make up a position on the outside. Well, sadly we didn't see the close of it, but here is Tony Caig again, and you can see Gerard McCosh closing up on this car as he comes into Paddock Hill. Gerard just very, very tidy indeed. Doesn't go over the rumble strips. The instructors tell you not to do that here, but the drivers inevitably use a little bit more of the road than perhaps they should at Brands Hatch. As we go back on board with Tony Caig, now switching to Steve Reynolds, and there's Pekka Latola just going down the inside, trying to get down the inside of the white car of Ian Holden. Doesn't work for him at Graham Hill Bend, didn't quite have the line there. Oh, Pekka, he's in a borrowed car as I mentioned, and I have to say, normally drivers at borrowed cars maybe spend a little bit more time doing discretion rather than valour, but Pekka getting right stuck in as we look back from Stephen Traherne, who is running in second place. Third place there, about 6 lengths back, is Lawrence Davey, and it's a speck, isn't he, on the horizon when you look at it. And there is the checkered flag. So the checkered flag, Ben Mason has taken the win. We took the flag. There is Ben Mason, the winner in 22. We took the race win, the checkered flag from 38, Stephen Traherne. But Ben Mason, you can see, very pleased with that. It's his first win in England. Great news for Mason. There is Simon Belcher in car number 11, who finished 4. So a good race from Simon Belcher. And there is the third place car, number 19, Lawrence Davey, the man from Crawley in Sussex. Very spectacular driver, and still the youngest man to have ever won a Legends Cars race. Let's take a look at the positions in our first of 3 races here at Brands Hatch. The winner, Ben Mason, in 22, Stephen Traherne in second place, car number 38. Lawrence Davey was third, and the man you saw there, car number 11, Simon Belcher, was fourth. Glenn Burtonshaw in 5th position from Mark Lord. Elliot Mason, the Scottish youngster, excellent 7th place for him. Ian Holden in 8th place. 9th was Steve Thompson, and the Finnish visitor Pekka Latola taking 10th place. So a great result for many of our visitors here. Well, we're already on to race number 2, and the pace car there. All of these, of course, rolling starts for these 1200 and 1250cc Yamaha powered machines, and we're on board with Darren Galton, who starts on pole position. So we've got a Burnett Motorsport car on pole position again. The pace car there, you can see right of picture, coming into pit lane and getting ready to start the race. Darren Galton here in the former John Higgins car, the former World Championship winning car, is going to pace the cars down towards the line. Then the lights will go out on the gantry. I'm not sure if we'll see him from the onboards, and Darren Galton will get the race underway. I can tell you on his outside it's Ian Holden, it's Elliot Bunn and Simon Belcher behind them. We saw Belcher there just having a little nudge. There is Glenn Burtonshaw right of shot, the black 72 car, but we're on board with Steve Traherne now, who's starting way back on the 8th row of the grid in this one, so he's got work to do. What a great sight these cars make. 30 plus cars making their way around the Paddock Hill bend here at Brands Hatch and up under the Carluke Bridge into Druids for the first time. And Steve Traherne already coming under pressure. You can see Ben Mason, race 1 winner there on his inside. Behind Ben Mason it's 85, and that of course is Ian Holden. As we look at number 5, Tony Kay, currently running around about mid-order. He's got quite a bit of work to do here. Looks at the inside of Ben Mason, who left a shot there, goes all over the shot there. 56 Mark Lord here, the yellow car, former VWB champion Mark Lord from the Midlands, and Mark running very well indeed at the moment. Occasional racer in Legends cars is Mark Lord, but there's Darren Galton again, and currently running in 3rd place. Ahead of him is 85 Ian Holden, who's doing a great job. There is number 3 Gary Fitzpatrick, up into 5th gear, top of the speed range here, 120 miles an hour. You see what a dive down the inside that was by Ben Mason. Makes up a position there down the inside. Oh, and somebody's gone off at Paddock Hill bend. There's loads of dirt. I think they kept their foot in and will probably recover as we look at Simon Belcher going down the inside of 85 Ian Holden. 44, that's Andrew Donald. We saw him in the first race having a good dice there, trying to chase Lawrence Davies. So Davey hasn't made that much in terms of progress on the gentleman drivers at this stage. Oh, and a spin! A spin there, that's Ross Marshall, and Tony Piggott comes in as well and goes into the back of him. That is a pretty serious one. That's Graham Hill bend, and those two cars prone across the circuit. I wonder if we're going to see a stoppage. Darren Galton, this is the other side of the circuit we're on at the moment, so the marshals have got time to get the flags out. Ross Marshall and Anthony Piggott were racing towards the back of the field, so will we see flags? We've certainly got waved yellows out there, so there won't be any, shouldn't be any overtaking, although 26 Steve Reynolds thinks about a different line on Gary Fitzpatrick around Paddock Hill bend. That doesn't work for him. Nice bit of curbing there from Steve Reynolds, who very clearly is enjoying his outing at Brands Hatch. It really is a driver's circuit. And as they come around Druids, yeah, the red flag's out on this race. We look from Darren Galton ahead to 85 Ian Holden, and as we come down towards Graham Hill bend, we should see the 2 stricken cars of Ross Marshall, who had a spin, and Anthony Piggott, who is one of the guests of Gary Fitzpatrick this weekend. You can just see it towards the left of shot, and our wonderful marshals getting involved and recovering those vehicles. I don't know if we're going to get a look to see those stricken cars as we look back from Tony Cade's machine. You can see the marshals doing their job very well indeed, and yeah, left of shot there you can see the 2 Burnett Motorsport cars very sadly out of this race. So a little bit of a breather for the drivers as the recovery work gets underway, but very shortly, thanks to the good work of the recovery crews, we're ready for the restart. The restart, of course, after a couple of laps racing, will be in single file, and Steve Reynolds, you can see behind him, is young Elliot Mason, who did very well indeed. Only done a handful of Legends races, Elliot Mason, but very quick family. Ben, we saw win race number 1, a triple Scottish champion, possibly taking a year out in 2008 as his brother and the rest of the family will be focusing on his brother's efforts in the Scottish Formula 4 Championship, which he did very well in 2007. And everybody now just bedding themselves in for this restart here around Brands Hatch. The races tend to last around about 10 minutes. They're short, sharp races in Legends cars. I mentioned the 1250 and 1200cc engines. The 1250s are sealed, and the 1200 you can pretty much do with what you want, and there does seem to be parity in the field, nothing between either type of engine. This is Cooper Straight they're on now. We're looking back at Gary Fitzpatrick's car, and you can see a good healthy crowd here at Brands Hatch this weekend, enjoying all the racing that's on offer, and what a great day for it. Who'd have thought the sun would be shining like this in November. Back at Tony Kay, car number 5, and Tony adapting very well to Legends. Did a Scottish Championship round a few weeks ago and managed to get a very healthy position from the back of the grid. In Legends, if you're a newcomer, you do start at the back of the field. You can see the pace car at the top end there, about to pull off into pit lane. We're looking back at number 14, that's Steve Mills, last year's winter champion. Steve about to have a go as they come up towards the line. No question of a jump start there. On board with Darren Galton again. Galton currently running in third position. Cars come around Paddock Hill Bend. Big sweeping corner, great place to watch. You can see a huge crowd up there in the grandstand enjoying this restart. And are we going to see any changes up the front in this race? On board with Steve Reynolds, a little way down the pack. You can see again just how difficult it is with the sun that low. Visibility for the drivers not great as Tony Kay goes a little bit wide there. A little bit of opposite lock from him. To be fair to him, he's under pressure there because he's got Ben Mason behind him. This is Gary Fitzpatrick, and Gary probably dropped a little bit of time on those guys on the restart. Back with Darren Galton up in the positions, and through there goes Pekka Latola. So Pekka Latola overtaking Darren Galton. So Darren's lost a couple of places on the restart lap, which is a shame for him, but again, to be fair to him, he's betting himself into this new car, the ex-Higgins car. It's the first time that he's driven it. And here's Gary Fitzpatrick. Ben Mason there in the blue car with the checkered top, busy chasing, having a think about whether to go down the inside or possibly slipstream as we go back on board with Darren Galton down towards Paddock Hill Bend. And down the inside goes Steve Treherne, 38, the red, white and green car, and following through as well is Elliot Bunn, the rookie champion. That's the first passing manoeuvre we've seen from Elliot Bunn, and there's another car gone through as well. I think that's possibly Tony Kager, Black Machine. We'll try and check that out. The sunlight's difficult to tell, but there is Steve Reynolds going up towards Druids. Down his inside goes Gary Fitzpatrick in the red and white car, and through also goes Elliot Mason. That was good work from Elliot Mason, who really let the car in front do all the work. Now there's Ben Mason in front now, Elliot's brother, going a little bit wide at Graham Hill Bend as we go back on board with Darren Galton, car number 34, who is running now just outside the top 10 in this race. And we're looking at a yellow car of Mark Lord, and Steve Reynolds coming under fire now from Gerard McCosh. Not literally under fire. Gerard in 69, the veteran of Legends cars, probably done more races in the UK than any other driver. Does all the national championship rounds, and Gerard there going wide. You can see to get the momentum and do a slingshot down the inside, which I think he's managed to pull off. As we look back from Gary Fitzpatrick, he's very possibly going to be the next target for Gerard. Back with Darren Galton, there is Elliot Bunn down the inside of Mark Lord. Lord in the yellow car, tight line for Lord, and now Steve Reynolds coming under pressure from Ali Hunter in 68, who goes very, very wide indeed. Don't think we're going to see the conclusion of that manoeuvre, which is a little bit of a pity. Well, the chops and changes of the camera angles really do show you there's action all the way down the field here in the Legends. On board again with Darren Galton, the man from Bristol, fending off Ben Mason at the moment. Here is Galton. You can see he's got his mirrors full of Ben Mason, and up front he's got a job to do because he's got a car in front that, as you would expect, is picking all the racing lines up into Surtees, then McLaren, then Clearways they'll go. When you see the onboard, the corners have a little bit more sweep than when you see them as a spectator from afar. Here is Galton then, onto Clark Curve, then it's the long run down towards Bradham Straight. Up through the gears they go, and this race by no means settled yet. I can tell you it's Steve Mills in car number 14 that's out front from Martin Davey. And here we are on board with Darren Galton again. Steve Reynolds about to be attacked by 65 Bob Becky. In fact, no, he isn't. Becky continuing on his way. Steve Reynolds with a problem, pulls off into pit road, so he retires from that one. That's going to be major, major disappointment for him. Darren Galton just got done there, but I think that was his teammate. There's number 5, Tony Kaig. So to burnettmotorsport.com, cars here together, down on Cooper Straight they go. And we're looking again from Darren Galton. It was Ben Mason that passed Darren Galton. So Ben now up into the top 10 in this race, and we'll be chasing Glenn Burtonshaw in 72. Can't see Glenn. I think he's in the dark car in the pack up ahead. And Darren Galton certainly acquitting himself very well with this new car. As we said, coming to this particular machine for this meeting, there is Gary Fitzpatrick. Takes a tight line to the wall, and as they come along the straight, in theory they'll be picking up pit signals from the crew, but you just can't see. The best thing you can see is probably the lap indicator, which tells us that we're in the closing stages of this second heat of the day for the Legends. Tony Kaig now's got himself in front of Darren Galton, so that's very good progress indeed from Tony Kaig. Up towards Druids we go again. Puff of smoke out of the back of the car as he changes down. He's now trying to hunt down Ben Mason in front of him. Kaig gets a little bit of a wobble on as he comes out of Druids there. That will lose him just a little bit of time as we look back from Darren Galton. Behind him it's Elliot Mason who's running strongly. Behind Elliot is Gerard McCosh. Both of those guys from towards the back of the field. And Tony Kaig, in fact, coming under pressure from Darren Galton here, so Kaig's mistake did lose him a bit of time. The momentum was scrubbed off as he came out of Druids, and you can see him really working with the car. I'd say that Tony Cake probably not as smooth as he should be, but having only done a handful of meetings in Legends, totally different to the saloon car racing he's done before. He's acquitting himself pretty well now, but keep your eyes on the right of shot, because there is the checkered flag, which we take on board with Gary Fitzpatrick, who finishes in 11th place. It's Darren Galton in 34. A good race for him, finishes down in 12th place. That's not a bad result at all for Darren. The race winner, though, was Steve Mills, who was some way in the distance, and that was a good result for Millsy, but a good clean race for the Burnett Motorsport team there. Apart from that restart, we had 2 cars out earlier on. Let's take a look at the results, which went as follows. The race winner, 14, Steve Mills. Lawrence Davey on the podium again, 2nd position for 19. 38, Steve Traherne up to 3rd that time from the back of the grid, then Pekka Tola 4th. Simon Belcher 5th, so he's in the positions again. So too was Ian Holden. Mark Lord and Steve Thompson 7th and 8th, 9th and 10th Glenn Birkshaw, and 22 Ben Mason. That was a reverse grid, of course, which means that the guys that started in front in the first race had to start at the back in the second one. The final sees the grid positions based on the points scored over the 2 heats, with the lesser scoring drivers at the front of the grid. And I can tell you that on pole position we've got Simon Longman. Alongside him is the car that we're looking at now, number 3, or the car that we're on board with now. That's Gary Fitzpatrick. If we look back from Gary, you can see Darren Galton behind him, and behind that car we've got Elliot Bunn. In fact, there is Elliot just on the inside, the left of shot, just going out of shot there. Behind Elliot Bunn is Tony Cade in car number 5, the black car. And these guys really at the front of the grid, the ones that haven't had the rub of the green so far. We're getting ready for our final race of the day, and it's Gary Fitzpatrick who has the honour of starting. This is technically pole at Brands, the outside of the front row. You can get a run from a standing start down the hill, and look how crowded this is from Steve Traherne. Oh, and Simon Belcher at 11 gets a tap there from somebody, spins around, and how they avoided him I'll never know. And look how frenetic this is at the start when you've got the top guys at the back. 38, we're on board with Stephen Traherne here, and where are you going to go? You're going to pick your line here. Lawrence Davey looks the bravest of the lot. He's the car in the middle in front of us here. Is he going to get squeezed out? Almost touches Ben Mason. Pekka Tola got hit there, got tagged and into a spin. He also cannoned into 22. Ben Mason, who's gone out as well. Mason hopefully will be able to try and recover. Latola was very unlucky there. He was riding the mix, but definitely not his fault. As we look back now at Steve Thompson in silver and purple, we saw him in Heat 1. Steve, a very, very determined driver indeed. Former championship runner-up over the years gone by, and one of the drivers that's done an awful lot of racing over the years. This possibly his last meeting in Legends Cars, talking about hanging up his helmet next year as his son. Hello, somebody got a problem there on the inside, possibly going pit bound as we go on board again with Steve Traherne. You can see him bump drafting Lawrence Davey. Now, this is returning the compliment that we saw Davey issuing out earlier on. Davey was bump drafting Stephen Traherne down the straight, and Davey, that really isn't a helping hand he's had there. He's out-braked Mark Lord into Paddock Hill Bend and gone up front. Now Steve Traherne's going to try and go down the inside of Mark Lord. To be fair here, Lord is going to have to stick to the outside, and he's going to lose momentum. There he is in the yellow car there, just drifting wide. Steve Traherne in red, white and green goes through. Down towards Paddock Hill they go. 19, Lawrence Davey coming up through the field there. You can see correcting little mistakes on the steering very, very smoothly indeed, but those mistakes did cost him, because Traherne has caught back up again here. So Traherne we're riding from now. There is Lawrence Davey in front. These two, in fact the two youngest drivers ever to have run races. I said that Davey was the youngest man to have won Legends Cars race. Steve Traherne is the youngest man to have won a national championship Legends Cars race, both of them just days after their 17th birthdays. And Davey on the inside here, but Traherne's got the better line here. There's more momentum around the outside. Around the outside of Davey goes. Is he going to be able to slot down on the inside of Darren Galton in 34? Yes, he is. There is the golden black car of Simon Longman, who started on the front row, and he's held position very well. It's the first time Simon Longman's gone in the pack. Did part of a season, had a few broken bones and a broken shoulder early on in the year. He's recovered from that, driving very well in this race. The cars go up towards Druids once again. Looking back there, 24, Matthew Pate, number 3, Gary Fitzpatrick, who we go on board with now, chasing down 34, Darren Galton, who really did own that line going into the corner. And now Traherne up the inside of Steve Thompson. So well done, Steve Traherne. Down the inside of Steve Thompson on Cooper Straight. Up in towards Surtees they go. Left-hander at Surtees, right-hander at McLaren. Then it's sweeping right the way round through Clearways onto Clark Curve, and then Brabham Straight. You can see Traherne desperately trying to close in on the cars in front. Darren Galton, look back from the Darren Galton car to 24, Matthew Pate. And there's Simon Longman in front of us again. Driving very well indeed, Longman, and enjoying his Legends. This is a track that tends to inspire people. I suppose it can go one way. You can either inspire or intimidate. Certainly some of the newcomers that we're seeing in Legends this year being inspired to race very well in front of this big crowd at Brands Hatch. And Galton, look at the outside here. That's a very difficult way to get around another car here at Brands Hatch, but the line's there, and Galton's done it. Around the outside of 51, Simon Longman. That was a good move, and really to pull off that move, you have to be a very good driver indeed to do that, but also have the respect of the guy on the inside. Longman did a good job on the inside, as Steve Traherne now goes into third place. So Traherne up into third position on this one now, and ahead of him, the battle for the lead between Steve Mills and Tony Craig, who's up front. We're looking back from Gary Fitzpatrick at the two Scottish Championship rivals, 68 Ali Hunter and 69 Gerard McCosh. These two have been sparring all year up in Scotland, and Hunter on a very welcome visit down to the Kent circuit. The bumper on his car flapping a little bit. Back on board with Darren Galton. He's running inside the top 10 again, which is very good for Galton. And here is the battle for the lead. Steve Mills coming under pressure from Tony Craig in second place. Is Steve Traherne going to be able to join them? We're on board with Gary Fitzpatrick in car number 3. He's running just at the lower edges of the top 10 at the moment, chasing Darren Galton. Here is Traherne. Tony Craig gets a little bit of a opposite lock moment on there at Graham Hill Bend. Along the straight they go, and is Tony Craig going to have a look at the inside of Steve Mills here or not? Puff of smoke as they go up in towards Surtees. Traherne's looking for the outside line. Traherne here has got the racing line, the one the Formula 4 drivers would do, and this will give him more momentum onto the straight. Let's see what he can do. He bumped Josh Craig, not the best place to do it. That unsettles Craig's car, and he collects it all up. Now, has Traherne got that momentum? He's coming onto the straight now. Craig's going to look to the outside here of Steve Mills, but Traherne's going to go down the inside. Who's going to be last on the brakes? Traherne goes through on the inside. Fantastic manoeuvre from Steve Traherne, who carried that momentum through from his run, a wide run into clearways. Also, really has to be said that he did unsettle the car of Tony Craig. Now, has Craig got second position, or is he going to have to content himself with third place here as we go on board with Gary Fitzpatrick, now running in 11th place, challenging for 10th on 34. This is Darren Galton up front, and now we look back at Gerard McCosh in car number 69, who's having a great old race. Is Gerard once again. Gerard, a driver, as I've said, starts all his races from the back of the field when he races with the Nationals, and he is a fast driver, but he just likes to start out of trouble at the back of the field and work his way through. Enjoys racing with whoever he comes through the field with, and enjoys picking off places. Probably one of the men that's done more overtaking than anybody. He's having a good dice with Ali Hunter. Now, here we go, back with Steve Traherne. This is the view that he wanted to see. We probably would have liked to have seen him doing a bit more challenging. Oh, and there is a challenge, in fact, from Steve Mills. 14 goes around the outside, tries to get into Paddock Hill Bend first. They're side by side at Paddock. You've got to be very, very brave indeed to do that. But Traherne it is that hangs on to it now. Is Steve Mills going to look up the inside here? I think the answer is no, because Traherne controlling the circuit. He's got mid-circuit, pulls over to the racing line, clips the apex at Druids, hangs on to lead position, does Steve Traherne. So he is there. Down towards Graham Hill Bend they go. A quick look back at some of the minor placings going on there, but Traherne it is that leads this race. He's going to take another win. Took some wins in the last meeting here at Brands Hatch, which was held on the previous day. Gary Fitzpatrick running well in car number 3, Burnett Motorsport, but Steve Traherne is, we've seen how close Steve Mills is. Can Mills make a last-ditch effort and perhaps have a go? We'll see whether that's going to be the case, but they're coming up towards the checkered flag. You'll see it right of shot if you keep your eyes keenly peeled, but it looks like Steve Traherne's going to do it unless Mills comes to the outside. Checkered flag, Traherne wins the final today. That was from the back of the grid. Remarkable drive from Stephen Traherne, and we had a bird's eye view of it really from on board the 38 car. A great race from Stephen, another win for Traherne. Believe it or not, this car actually up for sale. Let's take a look at the top 10 results. In fact, before we do that, we'll see the winners on their lap of honour. The top 3, 38 Steve Traherne takes the win. 14 Steve Mills, last year's winter champion, gets a podium position in second place, and third place, first time in a national championship grid podium, goes to number 5 Tony Craig. So you can see the big crowd here, very appreciative of the efforts of the Legends Cars drivers. It's been a great day's motorsport from them. 3 different race winners over our 3 races, which is pretty much, I have to say, typical from Legends. We don't tend to see the same people dominate all the time. Ben Mason winning race 1, Steve Mills taking race 2, and the final going to Stephen Traherne in 38. Confirmation of that coming up on the screen just now. Traherne winning from Mills, 3rd position Tony Craig, 4th was Lawrence Davey. He could have been up on the podium as well. Elliot Bunn, excellent in 5th position, ahead of Steve Thompson, quality all the way down the top 10. Ian Holden in 85 was next from Gerard McCosh and Darren Galton. That just about wraps it up for this show. Hope you've enjoyed the racing.